Having an accumulated 200 plus years of experience specializing in their own. We at Bloom strongly believe in co-creation, collaboration, and teamwork. I invite each and every one of you to be a part of Bloom, where together we grow, and as Bloom blossoms, it will create ripples the world over. Let me introduce my co-host, Mr. K.V. Premraj. Premraj is a futurist and he speaks on employee engagement, leadership, and management. He is the co-author of 3 books, all 3 of whom hit the #1 bestseller spot on Amazon. He has spent 37 years in the banking and financial services sector, both in the public and private sector. Premraj hails from Mumbai and he resides with his wife, his son, his daughter-in-law, mother-in-law, and as he prefers to call her, his pet cat-in-law. On Bloom today, we have a dynamic personality. I invite Premraj to introduce her and take the show ahead. Over to you, Premraj.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you for that kind introduction. Like Deepak mentioned, today we have on the show a distinguished personality in Arpita Ghosh. Arpita has over 12 years of experience in training and facilitation programs for middle and senior management. She has trained across industries: hospitality, IT, education, service, pharma, media, real estate, and many more. She exhibits a fine blend of holistic approach in all her training programs. She is adept at working on behavioral changes with psychological understanding. A motivator and inspiration to old and young alike, she believes every individual has the potential to excel. Arpita was a media professional before her foray into training. She has been a producer for radio, AIR, DSJ Radio, been a corporate filmmaker, an advertising professional, and a journalist with Times of India, Midday, and DNA. Empowering individuals in communication skills, leadership skills, and emotional intelligence are her area of expertise, which includes life and soft skills. She possesses creativity abundantly in the form of art, writing poetry and stories, dance, music, and drama. Arpita uses expressive arts and mindfulness as tools for training and coaching. Her life's mission is touching lives, empowering individuals. Welcome to the show, Arpita Ghosh.
Thank you so much, Premraj. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bloom, for giving me this platform. And a very, very good afternoon to everybody present and watching here. It takes a lot to take time out on a Sunday to give this kind of dedicated time. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that appreciation. We love that and we acknowledge it. There is a lot that I've left out in the introduction part. I'll give out only a brief introduction. Is there anything else that you would like to inform the participants about you?
Well, yeah, I think I could say that in the last 3 or 4 months, what I have also added to my list of, everything else that I'm doing. I think I can now call myself a TEDx speaker. I can call myself author. I write poems. So there have been at least about close to 5 or 6 books which have been published and available on Amazon. And they contain my quotes, life stories based on life experience, and poems.
Wow, that's quite a full. We did not know about your TEDx speaking. We'll catch up on that later on sometime.
Sure.
You deliver programs on different topics. What's your signature program and what is the promise it makes?
Okay, so like you did mention that I have, it's like 12 years plus into training, and like we all keep growing and adapting. But in all my years of experience in training, whether I was training at senior management, middle management, one thing that I realized plays a very crucial role, and that is an individual's confidence in the self. And somewhere confidence in the self, so self-confidence and self-esteem go hand in hand, which is why I think my signature program is Breaking Barriers, your journey from I can't to I can. So that I think is my signature program, because I focus totally on helping individuals to understand where their confidence comes from, where they are in their level of self-esteem, how to develop it, and looking into the different fears which tend to, actually come in the path of our confidence. So that is what I consider as my signature program.
Oh, quite a name. From I can't to I can. That itself is empowering. And I'm sure in the course you will be doing a lot more. Thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you.
In transforming leaders, you talk about enhancing the Qs. That's IQ, KQ, EQ, PQ, GQ, and SQ. Can you briefly tell us what are the components of this alphabetical soup?
Okay, the common letter Q. So obviously Q stands for quotient. Let's look at the different other I's, the alphabets that we have. IQ, again, we are all familiar with it. That is the intelligence quotient. But over here, we also need to understand when we talk about intelligence, there is a deeper level of intelligence which resides in all of us. And most often, we don't really access that intelligence, because we look at IQ more as, dependent on KQ, which is knowledge quotient. Now, knowledge is something which we acquire right from the time we are born. Our basic learning comes through listening, through observation. So knowledge is which is acquired through reading, through listening, through observation. But if you really look at IQ, there, like I said, there is a treasure house of intelligence within. So when you have a combination of the knowledge which you have and you use that kind of intelligence which is already there within you, that's where, the wisdom comes from. So that's IQ, KQ. Talking about PQ, now P again, it can be your physical quotient, it can be your product quotient, it can be your own personal quotient which you can develop. So let's look at physical quotient. When we talk about physical quotient, it is so important for us to have total acceptance of our physical self. Like we come across many individuals who are really not comfortable with because our body is our temple which houses the soul. So we need to have a total acceptance of our physical appearance and not try to copy somebody, because it is a gift from the Creator. Talking again about the personal quotient is again related to acceptance not just of the physical self, but acceptance at our mental, emotional level also, total acceptance at all the levels. When we talk about product quotient, why I talk about the product quotient is because as an individual, whenever you're making a presentation, and today it's not about just a product to sell, but somewhere at every stage, as an individual also, we are selling our services, we are selling ourselves, we also have something to sell. So which is why, if I'm not aware of what I have to offer or what my strengths are, so that is why the product quotient is equally important. From PQ, we move on to GQ. Now, GQ is all about the glamour quotient. Now, when we are talking about glamour, again, it is very important not to get confused by, the glamour of the Bollywood and that kind of glamour, but we need to develop our own style of glamour, as in which occasion are we present in, how do we present ourselves. It's more about the way we believe in grooming ourselves. So grooming etiquette, it just comes in that, and that is why it's important to develop the GQ, that is the glamour quotient. There is another one, which is HQ, and that is the humor element, humor quotient, because we need to have a good sense of humor. If I have to hold the attention of the audience and you just go on non-stop, speaking without any kind of a lighter moment or sharing of a lighter moment, that sense of humor becomes important. So HQ is the other one. And the last one is SQ, which is the spiritual quotient. And I think spiritual quotient, like we always say, last but not the least, it's so, so important for every individual to develop that spiritual quotient, because it is the spiritual quotient which helps us in developing an anchor within, which again helps us to build our confidence level also. And as the days are going back, like I said, I mean, what happens is, we are constantly in a mode of transition learning. I realize that we'll soon have to add on TQ, which is technical quotient, because we are getting more and more into the technical world. And if you're not going to upgrade our technical skills, we will be left behind. So we need to work on our TQ too. So those are the cues for you.
Wow, what clarity. Love the clarity you showed in differentiating each of those cues. Thank you very much. Tell us a bit more about what is it that you do to enhance the emotional fitness of your clients.
Okay, so again, just the reference to my introduction when you spoke about the abundance of creativity. So for me, I use that entire expressive arts. You talk about drama, you talk about art, you talk about dance, you talk about voice, music. It can all be used to enhance a client's emotional clarity. Now, why when we talk about emotions, zindagi ke nau ras hote hain. And I have come across many individuals, sometimes they say, oh, nothing affects me. So I said, well, if nothing affects you, which means you're already there, you've reached nirvana. But wo baat bhi to sahi hai nahi, because to reach nirvana, it really takes a lot. So I said, why are we then concretizing ourselves? Why are we putting those layers of concrete on our heart and not willing to live life fully? Because I think if we really want to live life fully, we need to be in touch with our emotions. And let's be very honest, emotions are so temporary. In fact, I mean, if you give me permission for everybody out here, we can just do a small little activity to just see that how, we get carried away by emotions, not realizing it is in our own hands to just make the switch from one emotion to another.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. All right. So I would request everybody to just gently close your eyes and try to relive one of those moments when you were very angry with somebody. Just try to be there in that particular experience of yours when anger had overtaken you. Be observant of every minute details, especially observe yourself, your body. What were the sensations? What were the thoughts? What were you saying? How angry were you? What did you want to do in that moment of anger? Be aware of the sensations of the body, because in anger, there is a different way that your body reacts. How does your body respond? So be aware of anger. You can gently open your eyes. How are you feeling right now? How did that reliving that particular angry moment make you feel?
Very pleasant.
Okay, all right. So I'm sure there must be the others also who are probably now seething with anger. And since I have taken you there, it becomes my responsibility to bring you back. Gently close your eyes again. Relive an experience of yours which gave you tremendous amount of happiness. You were so happy in that moment. Relive that moment of happiness. How was your body responding to that happy moment of yours? Who were you sharing that happiness with? Were you smiling from ear to ear? Were you jumping with joy? How were you expressing that happiness of yours? Allow that happy moment to be absorbed by every cell of your body. Just be with it. And as you feel that happiness embracing you, enveloping you, open your eyes and bring back that happiness to this moment. So basically, what happens is it's the kind of thoughts that we have. Those thoughts give rise to the kind of the thoughts or the memories give rise to the emotion, and then we just get caught up with that. And which is why, again, knowledge of the self or mindfulness helps us in nipping it in the bud without letting it bloom. We just nip it in the bud over there and change our thoughts. So change your thoughts, change your feelings. So that's how I work with my clients to enhance their emotions. But again, it also depends because, like Sigmund Freud had said, that unexpressed emotions or suppressed emotions, they are kind of buried alive into the different crevices of our body, and they kind of find ugly ways of, coming up, which is why the body then tends to react with aches and pains. So if those are the kind of emotions that are there, and that is when psychodrama, dance movement, voice movement, art, these expressive arts become very important in expressing ourselves. Because what I'm noticing today is not everybody is comfortable in, talking. Communication to just leaving it as, like talking things out, pouring my heart out has become a little difficult. And when we look at these kind of expressive arts, sometimes there's not really a need to actually express that particular experience or anything, but there is a release of the emotion through the different movements or the entire process that one is guided through. So, yeah, I can say that's how I try to enhance the emotional levels.
Wonderful, wonderful. We are feeling so relaxed after the second session. Thank you for that. And I'm sure the same feeling will be there in all your students and all your participants in the trainings. While on the training field, how important is voice in connecting with people? And what is it that you do to ensure your voice resonates with the audience?
Okay. Here again, I mean, if there's one thing which has worked very well for me, now in the earlier years, what used to happen is, I mean, I'm talking about the pre-COVID times, we were physically present with each other. So feeling the pulse of the audience was very easy. And, one could just move from one to the other. But ever since we have taken on to the online medium, connecting with the audience, it has been a major challenge. And here is where voice does help, because to a certain extent, what I have understood is voice modulation becomes very, very important. And I always recollect when we were given the training by our radio senior announcer, when we were being trained for radio, if there was one thing she had said, because when you are sitting in a studio, you are alone in the studio, but you are actually talking to millions and millions of listeners who are out there. And I'm sure everybody can relate that every time you hear the RJ, you feel, oh, it's only for me. Like, this person is talking just to me. What is it that makes them actually just talk to that one single listener? And each one feels he or she is reaching out to me. That's the same thing that goes in for us trainers. We need to use that in our voice. So the most important thing is smile when you talk. From the voice, you can also identify whether this person is confident or not. So your confidence is conveyed through the voice. Your smile is conveyed through the voice. In fact, your entire energy is conveyed through the voice. So which means that if I, as an individual, take that extra effort in putting in more energy and putting in conviction to what I speak, and of course, conviction can only come when we are rooted in our own experience. So when the conviction is there, when that confidence is there, and when that energy, that passion is there, we can definitely communicate that through our voice and reach out to our participants. So that's what works in connecting and using voice, because I think voice is very powerful. So one must use it accordingly. And so again, talking about voice, it's also about speaking from the heart. When you speak from the heart, you have absolutely nothing to worry. Automatically you are, because it's from one heart to another. You are connecting. So just speak from the heart and you will be able to do it.
Thank you. Great share. Smile that gets conveyed through your voice, speaking through the heart. You put it very, very well. And somehow your voice really resonated with us and connected with us. You started with talking about the COVID times. Post-COVID, what are the changes that you anticipate in the training field?
Post-COVID, in fact, while we are still going through it, ever since last year, I realized that there was a lot of demand for, if you're looking at topics, resilience building. So what also happened was it's not just about building resilience in an individual. Today, we are also talking about organizational resilience. Because what happens is the individual resilience collectively put in an organization will work towards the efficiency and productivity of the organization. Because every organization today is facing the pandemic time, the effects of it. And so it's not just about us being resilient. It's not just about the employees being resilient, but an organization also has to be resilient in terms of being adaptive. And when we are talking about being adaptive, so resilience is one of the topmost topics that is there in demand. What has also happened is emotional intelligence has now moved up almost, I think it's now one of the first 3 which are in demand. It was somewhere, I think, 8th or 9th a couple of years ago. Then it moved to the first 5. Now it is first 3. In fact, the other day when I was talking to a VP of a pharma company, and he was just telling me, that leadership has taken a total change today. Because if leaders are not going to develop compassion and empathy, it's going to be very difficult to lead the team. So here is where, one has to now start connecting with people at a very different level. So the entire team dynamics has changed. So when I look at trainings, if we have to see at the individual level, these are the kind of trainings that will be required over there. And the other level of training, which is going to be in demand, will be on the technical front. So again, with the most of the companies working remotely, one has to be technically updated. In fact, even in our academics and education industry also, constant FTPs are happening where, teachers have just kind of got used to getting into the online medium and doing their teaching. And now again, in this second academic year of continuing in the pandemic times, we're already seeing what more new technology we can use to engage our students in a more interesting way. So these are going to be the 2 levels of trainings which are going to be in demand at the corporate level, or for that matter, any industry like we are looking at.
We are saying resilience will be in full force, and then for the skills of the future would be emotional intelligence, empathy, and compassion will be the skills that leaders will require in future. And then with tech being the cornerstone of our work from home and other things, technological change will also really overpower us. Thank you for sharing this. My last question to you before I hand over to Deepak. For the past several years, we have been fixated about millennials and their work ethics. We are now seeing these millennials are being replaced by centennials as the new poster boy or girl. How will these folks who haven't seen life without the internet fashion the future workplace?
So centennials, that is the letter C. So I think these centennials will have to focus on the 5 C's. And the 5 C's, again, over here will be, one is they've got to develop creativity. Because without developing creativity, it's going to be very difficult. Like I said, we can't be like, just technology oriented, yes, but we have to introduce creativity into it. Since we are, adapting to working remotely, so collaboration, again, is the next C word, and it is a key word too. For any kind of work that we do, we've got to collaborate and work, though we may be working remotely. And obviously, when you're working remotely and we are talking about collaboration, C for communication has to be there. Without that, it is not going to be possible. Other than this is critical thinking, because these centennials, I mean, like we said, they're so used to getting their information. So information is there, but unless I don't apply my critical thinking, there is no way that I can do much with the information that I will have on the tips of my finger. So critical thinking is the other C. And in fact, again, just while talking, the other thing that comes up to my mind, and especially talking about centennials, is concentration. Because the concentration level for these centennials is like, they're suddenly here and the very next moment. So their focus, their attention is very short-lived. Like they find it very difficult to, concentrate on something. So these are the C's that they will definitely have to develop and apply. And that is what is going to be the demand again at the workplace. So that's how they will have to work.
Thanks for sharing all those C's. And let me add another C from my side. It will be challenging times for centennials.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your time. Before I come back, I hand over to Deepak to take the session forward. Deepak, all yours.
Thank you, Premraj. I was just noting down all these C's, critical thinking, communication, concentration, and then now challenges. And this is this one question which came to my mind. For a centennial or a millennial who is passing out of graduation or having done his post-graduation MBA, 5, 8, even 10 years back, that one piece of certificate was enough to get him or her a job. Where will he learn all these C's and all these Q's to get qualified to get a job today? There is so much expectation from industry, from corporates, that this is the type of person I want to pick up. He is also lost. Who will be teaching him all this? He will probably gain this while he gets employed and learns new skills. So how do we correct that?
So what is going to happen is, one is, of course, NEP 2020 is going to be like, they are having the skill-based learning is going to be introduced. So educational institutes will have to introduce all this. And we have already seen that there is this gap between the campus and the corporate. There is always a gap. And the corporate always says like, we are not getting job-ready candidates. So the pressures are more on the educational institutes, on universities to incorporate soft skills, to incorporate all these C's. I mean, talk about any kind of skills. It is now going to be a part of the curriculum so that the students are better equipped with knowledge, as in whatever the subject knowledge is required. But other than subject knowledge, they will have to develop these skills, which again becomes a responsibility of the educational institute to incorporate it and give it to the students.
Yes. And we've seen in the last few years, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, this learning and development industry, the training and this professional speaking industry has really boomed. People who were really good at doing something, they've taken themselves to the next level, and also they are now trying to train and bring out this new batch of people who will be ready for this. We can always have a synergy between the educational institutions and this learning and development fraternity, so that, we can together help bring out, a flower which can bloom, literally, figuratively speaking.
Very true. In fact, it's not just the learning and development. I mean, today I know that there are a lot of recruitment agency. It's no longer like, just identifying an ideal candidate and sending them like, for the interview. In fact, there are these talent hunt uh, people. What they are doing now is they are actually taking candidates, they are conducting their own training programs, and then they are sending them to the corporates for interview. So what happens, like even the corporate also, because competition has increased to such an extent, so even the corporate knows that, okay, if I go to this particular recruitment agency, I know I'm going to get better candidates over here because they actually train the candidates and then send them. So which again becomes a major challenge for educational institutes who talk about, placement and all. So if we do not take care of such kind of trainings at the education level or at the graduation level or PG level, then we also stand to lose out our chances, like, so it has to be there all across.
Also, initially it used to be only government recognized universities. Now we have deemed universities, the one you are connected with. What are these deemed universities and these places doing different from what the traditional government controlled universities were or even are doing?
So what we do differently is because, like, the autonomy is there in coming up with different kind of programs. So other than the regular programs, what we try to see is somewhere how we can connect the industry and the academia. So right from the beginning, like, I mean, we have industry experts who come and share their knowledge with the students. Then, like I said, skill-based training programs are being held. Short certificate courses are being held by the university so that students are not just taking a degree along with them, but they are taking a lot more with. And what also happens is the kind of extracurricular activities that are held. We have different clubs. So you will have a financial club, you will the marketing club. So all these clubs somewhere are helping the students in building up their organization skills, in being systematic, developing their communication skills, being more responsible, being accountable for their actions. So that's the freedom that we have. And then, of course, internship becomes very important part of the program. And the tie-up with industries also sometimes, which gives us an extra advantage because they're already getting industry exposure right from their very first year of UG. So that's how we do things differently.
Yeah. And it is, I mean, you also will agree, it is said that, almost 60 to 70% of the students doing their schooling and college and higher education nowadays are actually doing that schooling and education for jobs that are not even defined, that those jobs don't even exist. Technology is changing the landscape so rapidly that we even don't even know what sort of a job. Previously, if you did BCom, you became an accountant. If you did engineering, you worked in a factory. If you did finance, you probably worked in a bank. Now we don't even know what sort of jobs are coming up. So how does the education system keep up pace with this rapid technological change that is happening?
So again, when you look at technology today, now technology today is all about the big data. And in fact, we at Christ, having identified that it's all a game of the big data, we at Labasa campus especially, we call ourselves the hub of analytics. So whether it is data analytics, whether it is financial analytics, whether it is business analytics, we equip us because this is what the demand of the day is. Tomorrow, I mean, like I said, information is all there. So which means data is all there. But what do we do with the data? We need to collect this data. We need to analyze the data. And then we are able to cater to what the demands of the society is, what the demands of the market is. So collecting data and analyzing it is become very, very important today. And like we said, technology is changing very fast. So if we don't keep updating ourselves, we will really not reach there, because we spoke about big data, we spoke about cloud computing. Now we're already talking about quantum computing. So there's no end to it. And like I said, TQ, if we don't improve our TQ, we're sure to be left far behind. So we've really got to keep in touch with it and take ourselves ahead, as well as take our students ahead. So it is this data collection which is going to help us analyze and identify the kind of jobs which are going to be coming up, and accordingly come up with those kind of courses to give the students.
Clearly, data is the new oil. I mean, as it is said, clearly data is the new oil. I just want to tap into your experience, your expertise, your knowledge. You spoke about resilience, you spoke about emotional intelligence and leadership. Any instance which has happened in your life, either personally or to a colleague, where being resilient enough actually helped, or it was a lesson on how to be resilient, and that followed into leadership. Anything which you can think of?
I think I can talk about my own journey. As you all have realized that I have really moved. I mean, if you have to look at my educational qualifications, I'm a master in chemistry, PG in chemistry. But where I am today is far, far from chemistry. And on the way, I think before I really got into media, it was like, marketing and sales. Because I thought, okay, I love travel. I love interacting with people. I think marketing and sales is my cup of tea. But once I got into that, I realized, no. Because, I moved from industry selling to office automation to home appliances. Last was, I think, with concept selling. And it was in the concept selling marketing where I said, I don't think this is me, because it was more like, you just have a concept, and sometimes you build up a rapport. See, it's again all about building up a trust with people. You build up a trust, and finally, if we are not able to deliver, I said, I can't handle this. And then, of course, I realized that, okay, probably like, creativity, radio, I got a click over there. And I said, yes, this is where I want to be. So again, it was all adapting, resilience, which made me move from one to the other. And from exploring all the plethora of media that was available, like whether it was radio, whether it was television, advertising, internet also, last was with 123india.com, journalism. And then I said, okay, so I have the ability to communicate well. So why not utilize it for the betterment of the society? And that's when I went on to do my personality development and counseling course with Dr. Tushar Guha and Nityanjali. And then there was no looking back. Got into training, got into counseling, and here I am. So I think if I had not developed my own resilience, I wouldn't be where I am today. So that's why I very closely connect to these topics, because, it's kind of tried and tested.
Yeah.
So, and of course, as a freelancer, the emotional upheavals, I think all of us over here who are freelancers can relate to it. The slowdowns that we have, the peaks that we have. So obviously our emotion graph also keeps going. So I think understanding all this through my own experience has made me realize, yes, it's all interconnected, and every individual needs to develop it, I think. Because whether you're a part of
I remember. So I remember the very first proverb, the very first saying in English we studied in school when we were in primary was a rolling stone gets lost. I'm not too sure whether we understood it in that first or the second standard when this was told to us, but this is classic example of, packaging it, putting it into a stronger word, call it resilience, and it is exactly what was taught to us when we were in school.
Absolutely.
You spoke about all these Qs, IQs, AQs, PQs. At some level, most of them are interlinked. There is definitely some amount of overlap between IQ and KQ. There can't be IQ without KQ, right?
Absolutely.
Physical quotient and glamour quotient is almost the same thing, separated probably by a very thin wall. Spiritual quotient is the sum total of all the quotients you have. How do you then compartmentalize these separate quotients and teach people that this is here or this is what you need to develop under this vertical or this quotient? How does that happen?
So what happens is, again, we talk about integrity, talk about an integrated person. So like, you need to take it under separate headings, work at it, and then integrate it as a whole. Because if you begin from, working as an integrated whole, it will not work. So we work at it very separately, and only after individually working with it, then we bring it as a whole. That is the individual, that this is what you stand for. And at any given point of time, depending on the situation, one of the cues may always be dominant. But it's also important to understand that as an individual, which are my dominant cues? Because based on my dominant cues, I need to encash on that. All the cues can be developed, they can be acquired. It's all a question of, it's an ongoing process. But there are some dominant cues, and we need to identify those. So which is why we work at it separately, and having identified it separately, then we bring it together as a whole.
I was going through all these cues, IQ, KQ, PQ, GQ, HQ, SQ, there is a TQ. Somehow there is one Q which is missing, and that is the finance Q, the money Q. And just for your information, this month Bloom is actually doing a program where we will help people find out more about their financial quotient. And I would like to invite you, and you would like to send that invitation to others, So despite this is a very, very big part, the money Q. Somehow, even in school, even in college, even MBA, finance, nobody teaches you about the money quotient. Nobody talks about that. So this is another very, very important part which you could also possibly incorporate in all these cues. And I would like to invite you to attend this program which we are doing. Bloom will be conducting this program.
Yes, sir. Would be great.
So, on a Sunday afternoon at 1:15, 1:20, I would love to keep on talking with you and, ask you questions. But I would like to throw up this opportunity for people who are attending. If there is anyone who would like to ask Arpita a question, please unmute yourself and ask her. Otherwise, we will take it forward from here. If anybody has any question, please go ahead. By the time people get to decide whether they can ask a question or not, Dr. Neeta or even Payal, if you would like to ask Dr. Arpita.
So Arpita, I would love to ask you one question. So when you deal with humans, we humans are made up of emotions. We humans are also made up of our vital organ, that is our brain, the superpower of mind. How do you deal with people who are really very logical and people who are very emotional? And I know that when it comes to the education sector and the kind of students which Christ is seeing is a blend of intellectuals, is a blend of even the EQ being on the higher side. So how do you really take care of this part of differentiating and again addressing the concerns which is related to the logical quotient and to the emotional quotient?
Okay, so this is why we talk about emotional intelligence, because like I say, intelligence is seated here, emotions is seated here, and somewhere the two need to come halfway over here, and only then can, effective communication happen. So we have to understand when we are dealing with individuals, what happens is in that first interaction, once we realize that, okay, this person is more, bent towards logical reasoning. So you need to appeal to that part of it first and then get into the emotional part. But there are some, when through the interaction you realize, who are totally heart people, who operate from here. So you first appeal to their emotions first, and then you talk about logic. So it's again about feeling the pulse of the individual we are dealing with and then conveying your point. So that is how I deal with it.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
So a viewer has a question, Mala Modi. She asks, does multitasking affect the emotions or the way a person works or responds in different situations?
Multitasking again depends. In fact, what happens if you look at research keeps throwing up, different studies every time, and the results keep varying. In fact, now they're saying too much of multitasking is not good, because when you start multitasking, what happens is, we always say, oh, it slipped my mind, because while I am doing one work, somewhere at the back of my mind, there is something which is niggling that, there's something on the gas that needs to be. So I am not giving my 100% to this particular job that I'm doing. And it can affect the emotions if I am the kind of person who cannot deal with, anxiety, who gets worked up very fast. So if I'm multitasking at that particular time, I'm doing 4 or 5 different things, or even if I'm doing 2 different things, I can get irritated or frustrated very soon, because I know there is something else that also I need to take care of. So I'm trying to finish this by a particular time. But again, like I'm saying, if we are dealing with technology, we don't know when a technical glitch will come up. It may delay me, and that can start making me feel anxious. So getting into multitasking then means I need to be more aware. If I'm doing 2 things, I have to be very clear about my time limits. I have to be very clear about my limitations. And I must know that I must not react, but I must respond. So that's where, we need to focus on our breathing. If we realize, being awareful persons, if we realize that there is anxiety building up, we need to take a couple of deep breaths so that we kind of, just calm down, finish the task on hand, and then move to the next. So Mala, I hope this answers your question.
Yes, he says, yes, thank you, in a comment. So I just want to ask you this question, and you touched upon this when Premraj was asking you. It was about the glamour quotient. And you clearly said that glamour quotient isn't only about looking good, but for youngsters nowadays, boys and girls both, glamour is actually a very, very important part. Young boys want to look manly, hep, like heroes, and young girls would like to, be looking good, fair, lovely, beautiful. How do you help people who don't fit in? Somebody who's come from a rural background, somebody who's never done this before, somebody who's coming into college and looking at people who are well built, or, really, if you could use the word sexy or whatever. How do you, it's more in the counseling domain, I understand, but because you touched upon the glamour quotient, I would like your views.
Okay, so one is, when we're talking about the glamour quotient, let's be very honest, it's not just about looking good. It's also about feeling good. Because when you feel good about yourself, and you feel good from inside, it gets reflected on your exterior. And the moment you understand that, then you know that looking good will naturally happen. Coming to the youngsters today who think that just looking good is important, and they forget about, for them, the feel good factor is looking good, not realizing it's about feeling good from within, feeling good about yourselves. And some of them come and, no matter how good to look at they are, but there is a kind of emptiness in which bothers them. So then, of course, we take care and we make them realize that what is inside has to get reflected outside. What do you have inside? And of course, for somebody who is coming from the two-tier or from the rural area and feels that it's again working on their self-esteem, working on their confidence. The moment you work at these two, like I said, they start feeling good about what they have. Automatically, they start taking efforts about their grooming. So with grooming and feeling good about themselves from within, they are
Yeah.
able to achieve their GQ.
Yes. So rather than calling it glamour quotient, it's a better word is grooming quotient. That is a much better word. It's a GQ. Yes.
Yeah, but then again, the word glamour has a different element. Because
Yes.
grooming, it's
Yes.
like, okay, groom, of course I am, well, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if you're looking at trainers, presenters, and nowadays everybody is constantly interacting with an audience. So we need
Yes.
to look at it as a glamour quotient, and
Yes.
just grooming is not enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And finally, before I hand it over to Premraj, my
Deepak sir,
last
I have
question to you. Yes. Please,
one
please, please,
question
Dr.
I would
Neetam.
ask.
Please ask. Please ask.
Yes,
So,
Neeta.
I would just love to know when, as a trainer, as a facilitator, or maybe as a freelancer, or maybe as a counselor, I'm seeing that we all are mostly getting into the rat race. And in this rat race, is it exactly what we are getting into FOMO, or what is it? Could you just highlight something on this FOMO?
Okay. Now, when you talk about rat race or you talk about FOMO, finally, it is up to an individual. It is for me to draw the line. It is stemming from our own insecurities. Like I said, I have been a freelancer. But again, it was for me to decide I can be contented, I can be satisfied with just this much. So, who is the one who's making a choice over here? I know we are all part of a society. I know we are all interacting with each other. We know that there are so many other trainers over there. But again, it's also about our own life experiences and what it teaches us. Because there's no need to feel insecure. If I would like to give a message, it is to tell people that there is really no need to feel insecure because, the horizon is vast, the sky is vast. There is a place for everybody. Because when you look up at the starry night, there are millions and millions of stars, just like there are millions and millions of us over here. Each one of us have our own place over here. So it becomes very important for us to understand our uniqueness, to create our niche. It's not about just being part of another, okay, we may be 10 trainers over here, but each one of us are different in our own way. Each one of us are unique in our own way. We may have the same content, but the delivery style is different. So I think the more we understand that, we are different in our own ways, we have our own uniqueness to bring into the field, then we can, stay away from the rat race and we can get over this FOMO.
Thank you.
Yes, well said. For every human being on this planet, there is a star in the sky. So if there are 7 billion of us over here, there are definitely 7 billion stars.
Absolutely. We are all stars, yes.
Yes, yes. We are all star material. Yes, yes. That is where we came from. And that is where we will finally end up. Yes, indeed. And that brings me to this SQ, the spiritual quotient. I would like your views on this. And why I am asking is this, you may have a person who is an atheist. He'll say, I don't believe in God. On the other extreme, you will have somebody who is like blind faith. He will not listen to anyone. Whatever has been ingrained into him ever since childhood or after reading a book or after some personal experience, that's the way he is. How do you then define the spiritual quotient of people like these and those in between?
So when we are talking about spiritual quotient, or we are talking about spirituality, one thing is it's very important to understand what exactly is spirituality, because religion is separate, religion is different. It is not that all spiritual beings are again like, religious. Okay, when we talk about being spiritual, again, it is just how connected am I to my own spirit, to my own soul level. Because each and every one of us, if we are today living, breathing, it's because of the soul that is there in us. And this soul that we house in this temple within us, what we call as a body, has its own life lessons to learn. Like a silent observer, it is observing, witnessing our life. And when we talk about building an anchor within, it is connecting to this soul within. And for most of us, the soul is just there waiting to be connected. That is why, if you see, we keep talking about the inner self. We're talking about the wisdom that is there within. Why are we talking about this journey within? So, when we are talking about SQ, spiritual quotient, it's about what is my connect to the self. Because again, when I talk about integrating all the quotients, or if I talk about me as an individual, there is a child in me, there is a parent in me, like, if you look at the transactional analysis. So you have a child, parent, and adult over here. But what makes me matured and wise is probably the integration of the child, parent, and adult. So when we talk about the spiritual quotient also, it's about understanding ourselves a lot more better. And the moment I start understanding myself, the self-inquiry happens. Then I realize that, okay, if I am very clear in my thought, speech, and action, as in, वो बोलते हैं ना, नियत इंसान की सही होनी चाहिए. And a person who is a spiritual being automatically, like, behind your words, behind your actions, any kind of communication, your intention will be noble. So a person who is connected to that higher self within will always think twice about their actions and speech before, the speech just comes out. So that's why I always say we need to feel it, mean it, and then say it. So that
very well said.
will help you to build up that faith in yourself. See, again, when you're talking about self-confidence, from where will that confidence in the self come? Unless we don't connect to that higher self within, that spirit will not open up. So we need to connect to that anchor within, create that anchor within, so that in moments of adversity, we can be anchored over there. And that's what also helps us not to react, but to respond to situations.
Yeah.
And like we say, if you want to have fruits, chiku ka phal agar khana ho, to you have to sow chiku seeds. Likewise, if you want a good life, if you want fruits of success, love, or whatever, what seeds are we sowing? Are we sowing the seeds of love and all? And where do we sow the seeds? Right within. Yeah. So that is what, is about developing your spiritual self.
Yes. And as it is very, very famously said, it is not that we are human beings searching for a spiritual experience. We are actually spiritual beings passing through a human experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And suddenly the electricity in my house decides to go away. So half the side of my face becomes dark. Before I hand over to Premraj, I would just like Payal to announce we have a resilience panel discussion coming up. This will be talking about resilience and employee engagement. Resilience Sutra, we will be having Dr. Neeta Matre, Dr. Sudipta Roy, Anil Thomas, and Angela Sprague. And I will be the host along with Dr. Neeta Matre. This is happening next Sunday, 27 June, 5 to 6 in the evening. Do join in. Over to you, Premraj.
Arpita, thank you for your time.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you very much.
We have had an interesting exchange of ideas. which gives us food for thought. You have got the chemistry of life right. We enjoyed the session and take back tangible takeaways. Thank you and God bless.
Your chemistry is full of equations, EQs. That is how she's got all those Qs.
Thank you very much. It's
Thank
really been great being on this platform with all of you all. Thank you, Neeta, Payal, Deepak ji, and Premraj ji. Thank you.
Closing words,
Thank
Payal.
you to all the audience too.
Namaste, Arpita ji. Namaste to the beautiful audiences. Thank you for staying here on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. Thank you, Arpita. And I would really, Bloom team would really like to have you again for a different session, for a Q, all the Qs, especially a masterclass on that.